Hello, welcome to this story. There are moments in life that arrive without warning, moments that divide your life into before and after. This is one of those stories. It began in a quiet neighborhood where family was everything, where respect, faith, and responsibility were not just words, but the foundation of every home. Her name was Zara. She was known for her gentle nature, a young woman who never raised her voice, who always placed others before herself. But if there was one person she loved more than anyone else in this world, it was her older sister, Amina. Amina was not just a sister. She was a second mother, a guide, a best friend. From childhood, Zara followed her everywhere. If Amina smiled, Zara smiled. If Amina cried, Zara felt the pain twice as deeply. And when Amina got married, Zara felt both happiness and a strange emptiness. Amina's husband, Yusuf, was a man respected by everyone. He was calm, responsible, and deeply devoted to his family. People often said, any woman would be blessed to have a husband like Yusuf, and Amina truly was blessed. Their marriage was built on mutual respect, patience, and faith. They were not perfect, but they understood each other. And over the years, Allah blessed them with 3 beautiful children. The eldest was Omar, an intelligent and protective boy who always tried to act older than his age. Then came Lila, soft-hearted and full of warmth, the kind of child who would hug you without reason. And the youngest, little Hassan, whose laughter could melt even the hardest heart. Their home was always alive. The sound of children running through the halls, Amina calling them for dinner, Yusuf returning from work with a tired but loving smile. And often, in the middle of all that warmth, there was Zara. She visited almost every day, sometimes to help her sister, sometimes just to sit and talk, and sometimes simply because she didn't feel complete without them. One evening, as the sun was setting, Zara sat in the kitchen beside Amina. The children were playing in the other room, their laughter echoing softly. Amina looked up at Zara and smiled. You know, one day you will have your own home like this. Zara shook her head gently. I don't know. I feel like my place is here. Amina laughed softly. No, Zara. Everyone has their own destiny, and Allah writes every story in the most perfect way. Zara lowered her gaze. Then I pray my story stays close to yours. Amina reached out and held her hand. It always will. That night felt ordinary, too ordinary, and maybe that is what made what came next so unbearable. Later that evening, Amina needed to go out briefly. She said, I'll be back soon, as she picked up her bag. Zara looked up. Do you want me to come with you? Amina smiled. No, stay with the children. I won't be long. Yusuf nodded from the doorway. Drive safely. The door closed. No one knew. It was the last time they would see her alive. Minutes turned into an hour. An hour turned into something heavier, something uneasy. Zara began to feel it first, that strange feeling in the chest when your heart senses something your mind cannot explain. She looked at Yusuf. Should we call her? Before he could answer, the phone rang. Yusuf picked it up. Hello? Silence. Then his expression changed. His eyes widened, his face lost all color. No, there must be a mistake. Zara stood up slowly. What happened? But Yusuf couldn't speak. The phone slipped slightly in his hand. A car accident, he whispered. The room fell into a silence so deep it felt like the world itself had stopped breathing. Zara shook her head. No, she said she would come back. But sometimes people say they will return, and life has already decided otherwise. That night, everything changed, and without realizing it, Zara's life had already begun to move towards a path she had never chosen. The night of the accident felt endless. No one slept. No one spoke. The walls that once echoed with laughter now carried only silence. Zara sat in the corner of the room, her hands trembling. She kept repeating the same words in her heart. This is not real. This cannot be real. But reality does not ask for permission. At the hospital, the truth became undeniable. Amina was gone. Yusuf stood still, unable to move. It felt as if his soul had been pulled out of his body. People were talking around him, offering condolences, reciting prayers, but he heard nothing. Only one thought echoed inside him. How do I go home without her? Zara couldn't even look. She stood at a distance, her tears falling silently. Her beloved sister, her safe place, her entire world was no longer there. The next morning, the news spread through the neighborhood. Relatives arrived. Voices filled the house again, but not with joy, with grief, with shock, with disbelief. And in the middle of all that, there were 3 children, confused, afraid, broken in a way they didn't yet understand. "Where is my mother?" Hassan asked, his voice soft and innocent. No one answered. Lila held on to Zara's dress. "Why is everyone crying?" Zara knelt down and hugged her tightly, but her voice didn't come out. Omar stood in the corner, silent, watching everything, trying to be strong, but even he was just a child. The funeral was held that day. The entire community gathered. Prayers were made, tears flowed freely, and as Amina was laid to rest, it felt like a part of everyone was buried with her. When they returned home, the emptiness became unbearable. Amina's scarf still hung by the door. Her cup was still on the table. Her voice still echoed in their memories. That night, the children refused to sleep. Hassan cried until his voice became weak. "Mom, please come back." Lila whispered, "I will be good, I promise. Just come back." Zara couldn't take it anymore. She gathered them all into her arms. "It's okay, I'm here." But even as she said those words, she knew she could never replace their mother. Yusuf sat alone in the other room, in darkness. He stared at the wall for hours. The weight of everything had fallen on him at once. A wife lost, 3 children to raise, a home that no longer felt like home. Days passed, but the pain did not fade. It changed. It settled. It became a quiet, constant presence. Zara began coming every single day, early in the morning and staying until late at night. She cooked, she cleaned, she helped the children dress for school. She braided Lila's hair just like Amina used to. But every small action came with a sharp pain, because everything reminded her of what was missing. One evening, Hassan ran to her and hugged her tightly. "Mom!" Zara froze. Her heart stopped for a moment. He looked up at her with innocent eyes. "Don't go. Stay with us." Zara's eyes filled with tears. "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." But deep inside, she felt something changing. This was no longer just grief. This was responsibility. And outside, People had already begun to talk. 3 children without a mother. A man cannot raise them alone. He should remarry. Zara heard those whispers, and every time she did, her heart felt heavier, because somewhere deep inside, she knew those words would soon reach her, and when they did, her life would never be the same again. The days passed slowly, but the whispers grew louder. At first, they were distant, just background noise. But soon, they became impossible to ignore. A man cannot live alone with 3 children. They need a mother. He should remarry soon. Zahra tried not to listen. She focused on the children, on their meals, their clothes, their tears. But no matter how hard she tried, those words followed her everywhere. One evening, the family gathered in silence. Zahra's mother sat across from her. Her face was calm, but her eyes carried a weight Zahra had never seen before. Zahra. Her voice was soft, but serious. We need to talk. Zahra felt her chest tighten. Something inside her already knew. This conversation would change everything. Her mother took a deep breath. You see the situation, don't you? Zahra looked down. Yes. Those children, her mother continued, they are growing without a mother. Silence filled the room. Then came the words, the ones Zahra feared the most. You should marry Yusuf. Time stopped. Zahra's heart skipped a beat. She slowly raised her head. What did you say? Her mother did not hesitate. You should marry your sister's husband. Zahra stood up suddenly. No, I can't. Her voice trembled. He is my brother-in-law. How can I? This is not right. Her mother remained calm. This is not about what you feel. Her words were firm now. This is about responsibility. Zahra shook her head, tears forming in her eyes. I loved my sister. How can I take her place? You're not taking her place, her mother replied. No one can replace her. Then why? Zahra whispered. Because those children need someone who will love them, not someone who will treat them as strangers. The room grew heavy. Every word felt like a weight pressing down on Zahra's heart. There are many women who could marry Yusuf, but will they love those children the way you do? Zahra couldn't answer, because deep inside, she knew the truth. Her mother leaned closer. Do you want those children to grow up feeling abandoned twice? That sentence broke something inside her. Tears streamed down Zahra's face. This is too much. I can't carry this. Her mother's voice softened again. Allah tests those he loves the most. Zahra closed her eyes. Her heart was in chaos. Her mind was screaming. This is not the life I wanted. But life does not always follow what we want. That night, Zahra couldn't sleep. She sat on her prayer mat long after everyone else had gone to bed. Her hands trembled as she raised them in dua. Ya Allah, her voice broke. If this is my test, give me the strength to carry it. Tears fell onto her hands. I don't understand this path, but I trust you. In that moment, Zahra wasn't choosing a man. She wasn't choosing a marriage. She was choosing sacrifice. The next day, she gave her answer. Her voice was quiet, but steady. I will do it. And with those words, her destiny was sealed. But what she didn't know was the hardest part had not even begun. The wedding was simple, too simple. No music, no laughter, no celebration. Only quiet faces and heavy hearts. Zara sat in silence, her hands resting on her lap. She wore a white dress, but it did not feel like a wedding. It felt like a responsibility, a duty, a decision made not by the heart, but by necessity. Across from her sat Yusuf, calm, silent, respectful as always. But even he could not hide the distance in his eyes. This was not the marriage either of them had imagined. When the ceremony ended, there were no smiles, only prayers and quiet whispers. May Allah make it easy for them. That night, Zara stepped into a home that was already familiar, yet completely different. Every corner reminded her of Amina. The walls, the furniture, the scent of the rooms. This used to be her sister's home. Now it was hers. She stood at the doorway of the bedroom. Her heart began to race. Her breath became uneven. Inside that room was a reality she was not ready to accept. Yusuf noticed. He stood a few steps away, giving her space. "You don't have to rush," he said quietly. Zara didn't look at him. "I can't." Her voice trembled. "I can't do this." Yusuf nodded slowly. "I understand." There was no anger in his voice, no pressure, only patience. "I will sleep in the other room," he added. "Take your time." Zara felt a small sense of relief, but the heaviness in her chest remained. Days passed, then weeks. They lived in the same house, but like strangers. They spoke only when necessary, about the children, about daily life, nothing more. At the dinner table, there was silence. At night, there was distance. And inside Zara's heart, there was confusion. She tried. She really did. She cooked for the family. She cared for the children. She fulfilled every responsibility. But when it came to Yusuf, there was a wall she could not break. One evening, that wall finally cracked. Yusuf spoke. "We cannot continue like this forever." Zara froze. Her hands tightened. "I told you, I need time." Yusuf's voice remained calm. "And I have given you time." Silence. "But this is a marriage, Zara." Her heart began to pound. "This was never a marriage for me," she whispered. Yusuf looked at her, not with anger, but with quiet pain. "Then what is it?" he asked. Zara's eyes filled with tears. "This is a sacrifice." Those words hung in the air like a storm. Yusuf looked away. For the first time, his calm expression broke. He said, "I never wanted to force you, but I cannot live in a house where I feel like a stranger in my own life." Zara stood up suddenly. "I didn't choose this either." Her voice echoed. For the first time, her pain came out. "I lost my sister. My life changed overnight. And now I am expected to just accept everything?" Tears streamed down her face. "I can't. I'm trying, but I can't." The room fell silent again. Neither of them spoke, because both of them were right, and both of them were hurting. That night, Zara made a decision. Before sunrise, she packed her things, quietly, without a word. She looked at the children as they slept, her heart shattered. "I'm sorry," she whispered. And then she left, without knowing that leaving would hurt even more than staying ever did. The house felt different after Zahra left. Quieter, colder, empty in a way that could not be explained. The children noticed it first. Lila stood by the door that morning, waiting. "She will come back, right?" No one answered. Hassan walked from room to room, searching. "Where is she?" His small voice echoed through the silence. Omar said nothing, but his eyes carried a question he was too afraid to ask. Yusuf watched everything, every empty chair, every untouched plate, every moment of silence, and for the first time, he understood something clearly. Zahra was not just helping, she had become the heart of the home. That night, Hassan cried himself to sleep. "Mom, please come back." Yusuf closed his eyes. The sound of that word hit him deeply. The next morning, he made a decision. He would go after her. Zahra sat in her mother's house, silent, lost. Her eyes were swollen from crying. Her mother looked at her. "You came back." Zahra nodded slowly. "I couldn't stay." "Or you didn't try enough?" her mother asked calmly. Zahra looked up, hurt. "I tried, but I can't live like that." Her mother sighed. "Life is not always about comfort, Zahra." Before Zahra could respond, there was a knock on the door. The room froze. Zahra's heart began to race. She already knew who it was. Her mother opened the door. Yusuf stood there, tired but determined. "I came to talk," he said quietly. Zahra stood up slowly. Her hands trembled. "I won't force you to return," Yusuf said. "I just need you to understand something." Silence filled the room. "The children," he continued, "they are not sleeping. They are not eating properly." Zahra's heart tightened. "They keep asking for you." Tears filled her eyes. "I know this is hard for you," Yusuf said, "but it's not just about us anymore." Before Zahra could respond, small footsteps were heard outside. Then suddenly, the door opened wider. 3 Malinki shadows rushed inside. "Mom!" Hassan ran first. Then Lila, Omar trying to stay strong, but failing. They threw themselves into Zahra's arms, holding her tightly as if she might disappear again. "Don't leave us," Lila cried. "We were waiting for you." Hassan buried his face in her shoulder. "I couldn't sleep." Omar whispered softly, "We need you." Zahra broke, completely. Tears streamed down her face as she held them. Her heart could not resist anymore. In that moment, everything became clear. This was no longer about fear or discomfort or even her own pain. This was about them. She looked at Yusuf, then at her mother, then back at the children, and finally, she spoke. "I will come back." The children held her tighter, as if they had just been given their world again. That day, Zahra returned, but this time not as someone who was forced, but as someone who chose to stay. And sometimes, the strongest love is not the one that begins easily, but the one that grows through sacrifice. When Zahra returned, everything felt the same, yet completely different. The house still carried memories of the past. Amina's presence lingered in every corner. But now, there was something new, a quiet determination. Zahra was no longer there because she had to be. She was there because she chose to stay. The first few days were still difficult. Nothing changes overnight. At the dinner table, there was still silence. At night, distance still remained. But something inside Zahra had shifted. She woke up earlier than before, prepared breakfast with more care, packed the children's things neatly. She smiled more. Even when her heart felt heavy, Lila noticed it first. "You're staying, right?" Zara gently touched her face. I'm not going anywhere. Hassan hugged her tightly. As long as you stay, I'm not scared. Omar said nothing, but one night he quietly placed his school notebook in front of her. Can you check this? Zara looked at him, surprised. Of course. That small moment meant everything. Trust was slowly returning. And Yusuf, he watched from a distance. He didn't rush, didn't pressure, didn't demand anything. Instead, he changed in his own way. He started coming home earlier, spending more time with the children, helping without being asked. One evening, Zara struggled with a heavy bag of groceries. Before she could lift it, Yusuf took it from her. You don't have to do everything alone, he said. Zara paused. For a moment, she didn't know how to respond. Thank you, she said quietly. It was a small exchange, but it broke a piece of the wall between them. Days turned into weeks. Their conversations became longer. Still careful, still respectful, but no longer empty. One night, the electricity went out. The house fell into darkness. Hassan got scared. Stay with me. Zara sat beside him, holding his hand. Yusuf brought candles, placed them around the room. Soft light filled the space. For the first time, the house felt warm again. They sat together, not speaking much, but not needing to. And in that quiet moment, something changed. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but gently. Zara looked at Yusuf, not as her past, not as her burden, but as someone who was also trying to be strong, trying to be patient, trying to rebuild a broken life. And for the first time, she felt something unfamiliar. Not love, not yet, but understanding. And sometimes, understanding is where everything begins. Time has a strange way of healing, not by removing pain, but by softening it. Days passed, then weeks, and slowly, the house began to breathe again. The children laughed more. Their voices returned to the halls. Their footsteps no longer felt heavy. And at the center of it all was Zara. She had become their comfort, their safety, their mom, not by blood, but by heart. One afternoon, Layla ran into the kitchen. Look what I made! She held up a drawing, a small house with 5 people inside. Zara smiled. It's beautiful. Layla pointed at each figure. This is Omar. This is Hassan. Then she pointed at Zara. This is you. Zara's smile softened. And this one. Layla pointed at the last figure. That's Dad. Zara paused. Her eyes lingered on the drawing. For the first time, it didn't feel wrong. That image of all of them together. That evening, Yusuf came home earlier than usual. He placed a small box on the table. For the children, he said. Inside were simple sweets. Nothing expensive, but thoughtful. The children gathered around excitedly. Thank you, Dad. Zara watched quietly. Then Yusuf looked at her. You should have some too. Zara hesitated, then took one. Thank you. Their eyes met, just for a moment, and then something unexpected happened. They both smiled, a small smile, brief, almost unnoticed, but real. That was the first time, not forced, not polite, but natural. That night, Zara thought about it. Why did that moment feel different? Why did that small smile stay in her heart? She didn't have the answer, but she knew one thing. The distance between them was no longer the same. Days later, it rained heavily. The children were stuck inside. Let's do something fun, Hassan said. Zara laughed softly. what do you want to do? Tell us a story. They all gathered in the living room. Zara began telling a simple story. The children listened closely, smiling, laughing. Halfway through, she noticed something. Yusuf was sitting nearby, listening too, not as a stranger, but as part of the moment. Their eyes met again. This time, the silence between them felt different, not heavy, but peaceful. Later that night, as the rain continued outside, Zara stood by the window, thinking, reflecting. Her life had changed in ways she never expected, but for the first time, she didn't feel trapped. She felt present. And maybe, just maybe, this life was not something to escape from, but something to understand. And sometimes, a single smile is enough to begin a new chapter. That night, the rain did not stop. It poured endlessly, as if the sky itself was releasing years of hidden sorrow. Inside the house, everything was quiet. The children had fallen asleep early, curled up under their blankets, safe, peaceful. Zara walked slowly through the hallway, checking on each of them. Omar was sleeping deeply, his face calm for the first time in days. Lila held on to her pillow tightly, as if afraid to lose something again. And Hassan, his small hand was stretched out, as if reaching for someone in his dreams. Zara gently covered him. Her fingers lingered for a moment. "I'm here," she whispered. She turned off the light and stepped out quietly. The house fell into silence once again. But this silence was different. It was not empty. It was calm. Zara walked toward the living room. A dim light was still on. Yusuf was there, sitting alone. He looked up as she entered. "You're still awake?" he asked softly. Zara nodded. "I couldn't sleep." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The sound of rain filled the space between them. Zara sat down, leaving a small distance, not too far, not too close, just enough. Yusuf looked ahead. "Do you remember the first night after you came back?" Zara lowered her gaze. "Yes. I thought—" He paused. "You would leave again." Zara's heart tightened. "I almost did." Silence. "But I didn't," she added quietly. Yusuf nodded. "I know." Another pause. Then he spoke again. "I never thanked you." Zara looked at him, surprised. "For what?" "For staying." His voice was calm, but sincere. "For choosing this, even when it's hard." Zara didn't know what to say. No one had said those words to her before. She had carried everything silently, without expecting recognition. "You don't have to thank me," she said softly. "I do," Yusuf replied. Their eyes met, and this time neither of them looked away. The rain continued outside, but inside, something shifted. Zara felt it. That invisible wall between them was no longer as strong, not gone, but weakened. "I was afraid," she admitted suddenly. Yusuf listened. "I felt like I was living someone else's life." Her voice trembled slightly. "And now?" he asked. Zara took a deep breath. "Now I feel like I'm beginning to understand it." Yusuf didn't respond immediately, but a soft expression appeared on his face. Not relief, something deeper, respect. That night, they didn't argue, they didn't struggle. They simply talked about small things, about the children, about the past, and for the first time, about themselves. The hours passed quietly, and when Zara finally stood up, something felt different. Not uncomfortable, not forced, just natural. She paused for a moment, then said softly, "Good night." Yusuf looked at her. "Good night, Zara."
No tension, no hesitation, only calm. That night, for the first time, their home felt whole again. And sometimes, healing doesn't come with loud moments, but with quiet nights where two hearts finally begin to understand each other.
After that night, something inside Zara felt lighter. Not because her problems were gone, but because she was no longer carrying them alone. The house felt different again. Not just peaceful, but warmer. Zara noticed it in small things, in the way the children laughed more freely, in the way mornings no longer felt heavy, and in the way she no longer avoided Yusuf. They still kept their distance, but now that distance was not filled with tension. It was filled with understanding. One morning, Zara woke up earlier than usual. The house was quiet. She went into the kitchen and began preparing breakfast. Moments later, she heard footsteps. Yusuf. He paused at the doorway, surprised. "You're up early." Zara smiled slightly. "So are you." For a brief moment, they both stood there. Then Yusuf stepped in. "Let me help." Zara hesitated. "You don't have to." "I know," he replied calmly, "but I want to." That was new. Not obligation, choice. They worked side by side, in silence. But it was not awkward. It was comfortable. At one point, their hands brushed accidentally. Zara quickly pulled back. Her heart skipped. Yusuf noticed but said nothing. He simply continued, respecting the moment, respecting her. That mattered more than anything. Later that day, Zara was folding laundry. She found one of Amina's scarves. Her hands froze. Memories rushed back. For a moment, the past felt too close, too painful. She sat down slowly. Tears filled her eyes. "I'm trying," she whispered. Suddenly, a voice came from behind. "You don't have to replace her." Zara turned. Yusuf stood there, his expression calm. "She was my wife, and your sister." Silence. "No one can take her place." Zara's tears fell. "Then what am I doing here?" she asked softly. Yusuf stepped closer. "You're not here to replace her." He paused. "You're here to be yourself." Those words hit her deeply. For the first time, Zara realized something. She had been trying to become someone else, to fill a space that could never be filled. But maybe that was never the point. Maybe she didn't need to replace the past. Maybe she needed to build something new. That evening, the children gathered around her again. "Tell us a story," Hassan said. Zara laughed softly. As she began speaking, she felt it, that warmth again, that sense of belonging. Not forced, not borrowed, real. Yusuf watched from a distance, and this time, when their eyes met, there was no hesitation, no confusion, only something quiet, but growing. Zara looked away slowly, her heart beating faster than before, not out of fear, but something else, something unfamiliar, and maybe a little dangerous, because feelings, when they begin to change, can no longer be controlled. There are moments in life when the truth becomes impossible to ignore. No matter how much you try, no matter how much you hide, your heart knows, and sooner or later, it speaks. For Zara, that moment came quietly, not with loud words, not with sudden change, but with something simple, a feeling she could no longer push away. Days passed like any other. The house was calm, the children were happy. Everything seemed normal. But inside Zara, something was shifting. She noticed it in the smallest things, in the way she waited for Yusuf to come home, in the way her eyes searched for him without her realizing it.
in the way her heart felt different when he was near. She tried to ignore it. This is not right, she told herself. But the feeling didn't leave. It grew. One evening, Yusuf came home later than usual. The children were already asleep. Zara sat in the living room, waiting. She didn't even realize she was waiting until she heard the door open. Relief. It came instantly, too quickly, too naturally. Yusuf stepped inside. He looked tired. "You're still awake?" he asked. Zara nodded. "I was just sitting." But both of them knew that wasn't the full truth. Yusuf placed his keys down. "You shouldn't wait like this," he said gently. Zara looked at him. "I didn't plan to." Silence. But it was no longer empty. It was full of something unspoken. Yusuf walked closer. "You worry too much," he said. Zara smiled faintly. "Maybe." Their eyes met, and this time, neither of them looked away. The moment stretched, longer than it should have, long enough for the truth to become clear. Zara's heart raced. This was different. This was not responsibility, not obligation, not sacrifice. This was something else, something real, and that scared her. She stood up suddenly. "I should go." But as she turned, her hand was gently held. She froze. Yusuf didn't pull her, didn't force her. He simply held her hand lightly, as if asking, not demanding. Zara's breath became uneven. "Zara," he said softly. She closed her eyes. For so long, she had been running from this moment, from this feeling. But now, there was nowhere left to run. Slowly, she opened her eyes and whispered, "I'm scared." Yusuf's voice was calm. Of what? Zara's eyes filled with emotion. Of feeling something I wasn't supposed to feel. Silence. But this silence was not heavy. It was honest. Yusuf released her hand gently. "You don't have to be afraid," he said. "I'm not asking you for anything." He paused. "I just want you to be honest with yourself." Those words hit deeper than anything else, because deep inside, Zara already knew the truth. She was no longer just staying for the children. She was no longer just fulfilling a duty. Somewhere along the way, her heart had changed, and now she could no longer deny it. That night, Zara stood alone in her room, her heart restless, her thoughts loud, but her answer clear. Sometimes, love does not begin the way we expect. Sometimes, it grows quietly, in places we never planned. And when it finally reveals itself. After that night, nothing felt the same. Not because anything had changed on the outside, but because everything had changed inside Zara. She could no longer pretend. The truth was there, clear, unavoidable. But that truth terrified her. Days passed, but Zara became quieter. She still smiled at the children, still cared for the home, still fulfilled every responsibility, but inside, she was fighting something she didn't understand. One part of her heart whispered, "This is wrong." Another part answered, "But it feels real." She avoided Yusuf more than before, not out of distance, but out of fear, because every time she looked at him, she felt it again. That warmth, that pull, that quiet connection she could no longer deny. One evening, Zara stood in the kitchen, lost in thought. The sound of water running, the soft clinking of dishes. She didn't notice Yusuf enter. "You've been quiet lately." His voice startled her. She turned quickly. "I'm fine." But her voice betrayed her. Yusuf stepped closer. Not too close, just enough. "You don't have to hide it," he said calmly.
Zara looked away. I'm not hiding anything. Silence. But this silence was tense, honest. Zara, he said softly, are you unhappy here? That question cut deep. Zara shook her head. No, it's not that. Then what is it? She couldn't answer, because the truth was too complicated. I don't know who I am anymore, she whispered. Yusuf listened. I came here for the children. Her voice trembled. But now, she stopped. The words refused to come out. Yusuf didn't push. He simply said, you're allowed to feel. Zara looked at him. For a moment, her walls began to fall. But what if those feelings are wrong? She asked. Yusuf's expression didn't change. Feelings are not wrong. What we do with them is what matters. Those words stayed in the air, heavy, meaningful. Zara felt her heart tighten, because deep inside, she already knew. This was no longer just duty, and that scared her the most. That night, she stood on her prayer mat again, her hands raised, her voice trembling. Ya Allah, I tried to do what is right, but my heart is changing. Tears fell slowly. Guide me. Don't let me lose myself. The room was silent, but inside her, a storm was growing. Because sometimes the hardest battle is not between right and wrong, but between duty and love. In the beginning, no one paid attention. People saw what they expected to see. A man who lost his wife, a woman who stepped in to help, children who needed care. It all seemed understandable. But time passed, and people started to look closer. Whispers returned, not soft anymore, clear, sharp. They seem too comfortable. She spends too much time in that house. This is not normal. Zara heard them. At first, she tried to ignore it, but words have a way of reaching the heart. One afternoon, she walked through the market. Two women stood nearby. Their voices were low, but not low enough. Isn't that her? The one living with her sister's husband? Zara slowed her steps. She didn't even wait long. Some people have no shame. Each word felt like a blade. Zara lowered her gaze. Her hands tightened. She walked faster, but she couldn't escape it because the voices followed her. Not outside, inside. That evening, she returned home quietly. The children ran to her as always. Mom! They hugged her tightly. Their warmth, their love, it should have been enough. But something inside her had shifted. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Yusuf noticed. You're tired, he said. Zara shook her head. I'm fine. But again, her voice wasn't convincing. Later that night, after the children fell asleep, Zara stood alone. The words echoed again. No shame, not normal. Her chest tightened. What am I doing? She whispered. For the first time, doubt entered her heart. Not about the children, not about her responsibility, but about herself, about how the world saw her, about what this life meant. The next day, things became harder. A relative came to visit, an older woman. Her eyes scanned everything, carefully, judging. So, you're comfortable here? She asked Zara. Zara stayed silent. The woman smiled slightly. People are talking, you know. Yusuf's expression changed. That's enough, he said firmly. But the damage was done. Because once words are spoken,
They cannot be taken back. That night, Zara couldn't sleep. She sat alone again, thinking, questioning. Am I doing the right thing? Or am I just lost? And sometimes, the world doesn't need to break you. It only needs to whisper until you begin to break yourself.
They grew louder, closer, heavier, and this time, Zara could not ignore them. Everywhere she went, the same looks, the same judgment, the same silent accusations. At home, everything was still the same. The children still smiled, still called her mom, still held on to her like she was their world. But inside Zara, something was breaking. Not because she didn't love them, but because she was beginning to lose herself. One evening, she stood in front of the mirror, looking at her reflection. For a long time, she said nothing. Then slowly, she whispered, "Who am I?" No answer came, only silence. That night, she made a decision, not out of clarity, but out of exhaustion. The next morning, she waited for Yusuf. Her heart was heavy. "I need to talk to you." Yusuf looked at her carefully. Something in her voice felt different, serious, final. They sat down. Zara didn't look at him. "I think," she began slowly, "this was a mistake." The words fell like thunder. Yusuf didn't move. "Not the children," she quickly added. "Never them." Her voice shook. "But this? Us?" Silence. Zara's hands trembled. "I came here for them," she said, "and I will always be there for them." She took a breath. "But I don't belong here like this." Yusuf finally spoke. "Because of what people say?" Zara closed her eyes. "It's not just that." "Then what is it?" His voice was calm, but deeper now. Zara struggled, because the truth was complicated. "I don't know where this is going," she whispered, "and that scares me." Silence filled the room. Yusuf leaned back slightly. "So what are you saying?" Zara finally looked at him, her eyes full of pain. "I think I should leave." The words hung in the air, heavy, final. For a moment, nothing moved, nothing breathed. Then Yusuf spoke. "If you leave now," he paused, "you'll be leaving them too." Zara's heart tightened. "You'll be leaving them too." Tears filled her eyes. "I would never leave them." "But you will," Yusuf said quietly. "Maybe not physically, but emotionally." Those words hit deeper than anything before, because deep inside, Zara knew he was right. The room fell silent again. Two people, both hurting, both afraid, standing on the edge of a decision that could change everything. And sometimes, the hardest choices are the ones where both paths hurt. That night, no one slept. Not Zara, not Yusuf. And somehow, even the house felt restless. The silence was heavier than ever. Zara sat alone in the dark. Her decision echoed in her mind again and again. I should leave. The words felt right and wrong at the same time. Her heart was divided, one side pulling her away, the other refusing to let go. She stood up slowly, walked toward the children's room. The door was slightly open. She stepped inside. Omar was awake. He looked at her. "You're leaving again, aren't you?" Zara froze. Her breath stopped. "How did you—" "I heard you," he said quietly. His voice was calm, too calm for a child. Zara's eyes filled with tears. She couldn't finish. Omar sat up. "You can go," he said. Zara's heart shattered. But this time, he continued, before coming back, don't. Silence. The world seemed to stop. Because every time you leave, Omar said, it hurts more. Tears rolled down Zara's face. Lila woke up. What's happening? Hassan stirred in his sleep. The room slowly filled with quiet confusion. We thought you were staying, Lila whispered. Zara dropped to her knees. I am. I wanted to. But you always leave, Omar said softly. Those words broke her completely. Not anger, not shouting, just pain. Pure, honest. Zara covered her face. I don't want to hurt you. Then don't, Omar replied. Simple, but powerful. In that moment, everything became clear. This was not about the world, not about people, not about fear. This was about them and the truth she had been running from. Zara stood up slowly. Her tears didn't stop, but her heart finally made a decision. She walked out of the room into the quiet hallway. Yusuf was there, standing, waiting. He didn't ask anything, didn't speak. He just looked at her. And in that look, everything was understood. Zara took a deep breath, then another, until she stood in front of him. Her voice was soft but steady. I'm not leaving. Silence. But this time, it felt different. I was afraid of what people would say, of what I was feeling. She looked at him. But I'm more afraid of losing this. Her voice broke slightly. This family, this life, and you. Those last words changed everything. Yusuf didn't move immediately, but something in his eyes shifted. Not surprise, not confusion, but something deeper. Relief. Zara took a deep breath. I'm not here because I have to be. I'm here because I choose to be. And in that moment, the line between duty and love finally disappeared. After that night, everything changed. Not suddenly, not perfectly, but truly. For the first time, Zahra felt at peace. Not because life became easier, but because her heart was no longer divided. She stopped running, stopped questioning, stopped fighting herself. And slowly, their home transformed. The laughter returned, stronger than before. The silence disappeared, replaced by warmth. Even the smallest moments felt different. Morning breakfasts became lighter, evenings became calmer, and between Zahra and Yusuf, something new began to grow. Not forced, not rushed, but real. A quiet understanding, a shared respect, a connection built not on the past, but on everything they had overcome. One evening, as the sun was setting, Zahra sat beside the window, her hand resting gently on her stomach. She smiled softly. Yusuf stood nearby. He noticed. You seem different lately. Zahra looked at him. For a moment, she said nothing. Then, quietly, she spoke. I have something to tell you. Yusuf's expression shifted slightly. What is it? Zahra took a deep breath. Her heart beat faster. I'm expecting. Silence. Time seemed to pause. Yusuf looked at her, not fully understanding at first. Then it hit him. You mean... Zahra nodded. Yes. For a moment, he didn't move, didn't speak. Then slowly, a smile appeared. Not just happiness, something deeper. Gratitude. He stepped closer, carefully, as if the moment itself was fragile. This is a blessing, he said softly. Zahra's eyes filled with tears. Yes, not tears of pain, but something she hadn't felt in a long time. Joy. Months passed, the house filled with excitement again. The children were overjoyed. "Are we really getting a baby?" Hassan asked. Lila clapped her hands. "I'm going to help." Even Omar smiled, a quiet but genuine smile. And on a calm morning, the child was born. A new life, a new beginning. Zahra held the baby close, her heart full, not with confusion, not with fear, but with certainty. Yusuf stood beside her, looking at them, at everything they had become. And in that moment, he understood something deeply. This family was not built the usual way. It was built through pain, through patience, through sacrifice, and finally, through love. Zahra looked at the children, then at Yusuf, and whispered softly, "Alhamdulillah," because sometimes the life we never planned becomes the one we were always meant to live.
If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like and subscribe, because every story we share carries a lesson about patience, faith, and love.